Now is recording. Oh, folks, welcome to another day in the paradise of Salesforce, Ohana. Shade is here, Jody is here. I think this is Ahmed and Nas couldn't join us. But Shayla, you want to talk about anything? You just... Oh, no, sorry.
Okay.
I did the wrong question. Sorry about that. It's not Shayla. I always do the confusions. I'm good with the name. Sorry about that. Jody, thank you for coming here. As I mentioned before, Jody is the queen of the admins. A really pleasure to have you here.
You're welcome. Good to be here. So I think we're just doing open office hours today, right?
Yes. Just recapping the last time we spoke about career path. We didn't have too much questions. We have the Ahmed talking about the project. For sure, I think you guys, folks, are gonna have questions about the project. We are here to try to help you guys. And last time we talked about the admin role and the business analyst and the consultant roles, just to clarify everything, and the developer a little bit, right? And most focus about decision, what kind of path that you can vision. And after that, still keep learning every single day, every single time. That's increasing the knowledge and increase your probability to be more successful in work career, right? And if someone don't know, I think everyone know Jody, right? I really, I'm like to merchandise now. Just kidding. But she has amazing book. I already had my copy there in New Jersey because I sent from Amazon to there because Amazon to Brazil is really crazy expensive. But next year I go to the TDX 23 and I'm gonna pick up my copy there in New Jersey when I'm gonna do the connection between Brazil to San Francisco, and I'm gonna have the pleasure to really have the book in my hands. And that's far I see. All the comments is a great book, and I didn't expect less than this because she's really the queen about the admins, and she has an amazing experience with this. And always I said that admin is start to be from a good time ago, a very important role, and she's just launched this book that's really help the whole community to understand how important is the admin role in Salesforce ecosystem right now.
Well, we didn't come to talk about my book, but thank you. And I am happy for those I haven't met. I've been in the Salesforce space for 20 years and have spent most of it on the in-house client side. So I am more than happy. If there aren't specific questions, I think we should just make sure that we leave, really some open space here. But I would be happy to answer any questions about admin roles, junior admin roles, what they typically entail, the BA in particular, or really anything else that's on anybody's mind. Just as somebody who has been a hiring manager in this space for a very long time. So I'm really just here today to participate in the event there's any topics I might add value to. So Mauricio, I'm going to suggest we see if we have any hands of anything in particular people want to cover.
Yes, let's start with 18, please.
Okay, thank you, Jody. So yes, you did mention you can speak on admin and junior admin role. I would love for you to go ahead and just speak into that because I'm new to this ecosystem and I'm still trying to, I'm going to try to do my exam this year. So I'd love to learn anything and to glean from you whatever you want to share that could help us.
Sure. I think first of all, I will tell you, I'm very partial to the in-house admin role. I think, by the way, there's no bad first Salesforce job. So I also tell everybody, apply to everywhere, whether it's a consulting job or an in-house admin. There's not a bad role to be had. Either way, you're going to learn a lot. You're going to have a great opportunity. But the reason I'm partial is I like the long-term care and feeding of a Salesforce system. And I like to get to know my users over time and my business over time. And I like to be part of not only solving problems on the Salesforce platform, but being there to help users, use the tool, improve the tool, iterate the tool, and really see how it becomes part of the business. And sometimes consulting jobs tend to be a little bit more, you go in and you build something, but you never get to really be there to watch people use it. So that's the reason that, just for me personally, I've spent most of my career over the last 20 years working inside organizations that use Salesforce. Junior admin jobs, what I can tell you, because there is such a high demand for Salesforce admins, it's a very hard job to find enough talent for. So most people that have large Salesforce teams at some point expect that they're going to bring in new talent and cultivate and mentor that talent over time. And the beauty of that is, people know that going in. So there's not an expectation that you're no Salesforce yet, other than, of course, that you've done the training and that you're certified and that you can kind of demonstrate that you've mastered the concepts that you've learned. But I share that in the sense of it's kind of a level playing field, and it's really where things like your transferable skills, other experiences that you have that have nothing to do with Salesforce, but have to do with organization and process improvement and communication, and all these other skills become really important. Junior admins or newer admins often have roles where you're probably doing four things if I had to think about it. One is, a lot of times you're helping just with what we call basic user administration. So setting up users, helping users get access to the reports and dashboards that they need, some of those kind of core skills of how we onboard or offboard if users terminate. So there's some element of that. A lot of times there's a data component in the role. And what I mean by that is, we'll just take Sales Cloud because it's still the most popular cloud. So there's usually elements of helping ensure that reps are entering the data correctly. A lot of times it's, there's different tools that we're using to deduplicate data, scrub data, pull reports and dashboards, create new reports and dashboards. There's usually an element of user troubleshooting, training, assistance, kind of just generally being there to answer those kind of questions. And generally speaking, and this is a huge generalization because all companies are so different, but usually the configuration tasks that are assigned, the first year are going to be things like facilitating the use of different platform features. Like a common use case for a junior admin might be that we need to make some changes to our lead routing rules, or we need to change some of the templates and the mail merge fields that we send out, or we need to add some new fields, or we need to create some new report types. So those generally are the kinds of things that I see new admins spending a lot of time on. The other thing I forgot to mention is data loading. And I don't know why, but data loading, every person that I talk to who's, within the first year of their Salesforce career, if I say, what have you been doing? I always hear data loading. And there are lots of different tools, but the data loader in particular is the tool that you can download. It's a little bit more robust than just the out-of-the-box import tool. But in order to really ensure that you not only know that tool, the other piece that I would add is being good at Excel, and at least having core Excel skills and the ability to do VLOOKUPs. Those, and some people come from fields where you've done a lot of that already. If so, do not underestimate that. That's a huge skill that will go far in a Salesforce career and something that you can talk about. So I hope that gave you enough to be dangerous with, Ethne.
Oh yes, because so I tell myself now I'm gonna
No.
skill up on my Excel.
Yeah. I still need
Yeah.
to skill up on my Excel. I just hire people that are really good at it. It's my dirty little secret.
Yes, and
Um,
I'm gonna be learning more about, like data loading and everything like that. So whatever you say, I'm notating that so that I can skill up on that.
and then I think I saw Mauricio. I don't know if you want to take this or you want me to take it. It sounded like I saw it fly by. Was it? I'll talk a little bit about UAT and some examples. Is that what I saw?
Yes. Well, the UAT example is there is the difference about sandbox, right? We have a dev sandbox, dev pro sandbox, partial, and full sandbox. Most part of the company using the UAT as user acceptance test environment. And what this mean? Mean that when the functionality is ready to be deployed in production, but before this, the end user and the QA team must to test if everything was that was requested is working as expected. And because this, we have the user acceptance testing environment. That's a sandbox type. Normally, is always a partial sandbox or is a full sandbox because there is data, real data in those environments that really can facilitate the tester's life. That means about UAT.
Yeah, and I would just add to that because people use the term UAT both to refer to the sandbox itself, that most companies name that full sandbox, which is a complete replication of their production instance UAT, but it's often also referenced as a process. We're going to do UAT, which means that we are going to sit down with our users, our stakeholders, the representative group for whom we are solving this problem, and we're going to let them be hands on keyboards and make sure the solution meets their needs. So I just wanted to throw that out. I know even in my company today, we sometimes are confused about when you say it's in UAT, do you mean literally the functionality is in the sandbox, or do you mean we've started the process by which we have provided some access to end users who now are going to go through some predefined steps so everybody can validate that it is not only working as expected, but doing the things they thought it was going to do, right?
That's a perfect point, Jody, because as UAT for us, developers and architects, we are always go for the type of the sandbox, but you put a very good point. That is a process. That is we need to just pay attention about when with UAT. It's not only about the environment that are going to be the test, but really the process that to be in place. I think so someone is
I think it's Armene. Hey, Armene. Every time we see
yeah,
Armene, she's always somewhere really cool. Like,
I am
yeah,
in I am in Dominican Republic. I just wanted to show you the surrounding, just to give you a 5 minute, 5 seconds of break from your boring cameras.
oh, you've sufficiently made us all feel a little island breeze.
Yeah, here it is. My my pina colada, and I will let you go, guys.
That's just not fair, Armene. Come on now.
I have a monster here, and I have a small cup of coffee too.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing this with us.
All
But
right.
yes,
Katrina
just bring back.
Dang. Katrina,
It's
Team
really
Hawaii, if I recall correctly, is in the house, right?
Yes, Team Hawaii. Hi, hi.
Oh no.
Mauricio
Okay, I'm
and
gonna disconnect here. Hawaii. No.
Right, just
Don't.
to go along with the island vibe.
don't get jealous.
That's good.
You won the summer weather. You know that.
See. The only three states that I well country right. I didn't visit from the United States was uh, Alaska, and Hawaii. The rest I know all the states. And this I'm jealous. Yes, I am. But one
Okay.
day I'm gonna
Well,
visit there for sure.
hello, everyone. I booked tickets. I booked travel to Jamaica, beautiful Jamaica. So if no one has ever been there, please contact me. You will not, it's an experience. It's something that each person should experience even once in their lifetime. Jamaica,
Yeah, I was there in 2011.
go
That's
back.
amazing place too. Yep.
Okay. Can I ask a question for deliverable this week?
Yes.
Proof of concept. That's what our deliverable this week. I'm not sure how to deliver this week deliverable. Can you guys kind of guide us? I watched the video from NAS, but I still don't know how to
So proof, I actually didn't see the video, so hopefully what I'm saying is going to match what he's saying. But at least I'll tell you from my perspective, and then Mauricio, you might want to weigh in as well. Proof of concept just means this is when we're actually going to build something, right? So you did a great job walking through the business process. You defined the current state, the future state. We talked about what pain points we were trying to solve. And now is the time when we're going to go put hands on keyboards and we're going to leverage the Salesforce skills. And I know everybody's at a different place. So what proof of concept just means is there's not an expectation that you're going to build this thing out end to end and it's going to be shiny with all the bells and whistles. Hey, if your proof of concept's like has extra time to do some more stuff, great. But a lot of times, like we will use that concept, Katrina, on a project if we want to show something. So, hey, before I finish all the automation, before I get this thing fully working end to end, let me mock this up and show you what I'm talking about and make sure we're aligned. So that might be, I'm going to show you the data model, or I'm going to show you where we've added some new fields, or I'm going to, I'm going to have a few things that are not going to be, exactly the way it's going to look. And again, we do that often just because we want to have those touch points. So we're always aligned before we do wasted work, right? So, and especially with a tool like Salesforce, where we have the ability to quickly build something and show it. My goal is always, I'm going to get a proof of concept out as quickly as I can, because if I'm way off base, I want to know as soon as possible, right? And because sometimes in real life, we all think we're talking about the same thing. And then until you see it, right, we realize that maybe we're not exactly aligned, or sometimes we're totally aligned. But once, especially people that aren't familiar with Salesforce, once they see it, it's like the gears start going, oh, you know what would actually be really helpful, or now that I'm looking at this, I forgot to tell you, whatever those things are. So that's always the idea behind a proof of concept is we're going to get some hands on keyboards and we're going to build something in a sandbox that we can demo, or even we can let somebody have a login to and actually start Salesforcing is the verb that I like to use.
Okay, I that's what I thought too. But now, how do we present to you guys? That's my key question. Do we do a video or like kind of screenshot some slide that we configure and show it on the presentations?
Yeah, there's again, you're going to hear this over and over. It depends, right? There's not a right way or wrong way. Typically, and again, every time I say typically, I could find 30 instances where I did it a different way. But typically, depending on how much time we have, sometimes we might start with a slide or two to just frame, here's the problem we were solving for, or here's what you're going to see. Because sometimes if we just go right into the app, people get so focused on where you're clicking and what you're doing that we don't always keep people's attention. So again, depending on what we're doing, sometimes that makes sense where you maybe a screenshot and then you flip over to the demo. Sometimes we just do a demo. Sometimes if we've already met a lot, everybody knows what we're talking about here, everybody's ready to see it, then I might do the opposite, which is I'm going to walk you through this so you've got the context end to end. I'm going to ask you to hold questions, and then from there, we can spend more time talking about each part, whatever. So again, not a right or wrong answer, just kind of depends on what would make sense in the context of, any given audience or, things like that. Does that help?
Yes, thank you so much. I kind of have an idea now. Thank you so much, Jody.
Awesome, you're welcome.
Yes, a very good point. That is, if you have time, normally we go for the presentation, but if the time is short, and there's a lot of content, is just go screen by screen.
Lorna Campbell, hello. You were up.
Hello. I have a further question regarding the UATs, because I think that's part of our deliverable, if I'm not mistaken, for the CLIck project. And how does that present or show as a deliverable? That's what I'm trying to get my head around. Are we supposed to put questions out there or scenarios regarding what our future business process is, and scenarios that say, okay, if this, then that type of?
Yeah, so generally, and again, Mauricio, you weigh in, but I'll tell you on the in-house admin side, what we usually doing is we're putting together, I'm going to call it a click stream or a test script. So for instance, if I'm going to just make this up, if part of what I'm demoing is we've created a new object and somebody's supposed to fill out 3 fields and then submit it for approval, right? So my UAT would literally be, okay, what's the thing that I'm going to hand to somebody so they know what they need to do? And so I'm, literally going to, give them instructions that say, in order to know that this does what it's supposed to for you in the role of salesperson, then here's the 4 things. You're going to 1, navigate to the opportunity, 2, click the button to create the new XYZ object, 3, you're going to fill out the this and the that. Oh, there's a validation rule. So you should not be able to fill out this field if that field is empty, whatever the things are that you've built. And then 5, you should submit it for approval. Upon approval, the record should lock and so should be notified. Obviously I just made up those steps, but that's what we would generally do if we were thinking about what we're deploying out, is making sure that each person that's responsible for some piece of testing, and that's usually going to be in the UAT, it's, they're testing as the different roles. So if you were building out an approval process, for instance, for a salesperson and a VP of sales, you're going to have, somebody testing as the salesperson, somebody testing as the VP of sales. They're both going to have slightly, different part in that click stream, if you will. Okay. Does that help?
That does. So it's setting out a set of instructions.
Exactly.
So to get from point A to point B, these are the steps that you should take. And if you take them, this is where you should go. If it doesn't go there, then we have an issue and we have to start over.
Exactly. And I'll give you a hint it's not really a hint for next week. It's one of the challenges that I see in UAT processes. This is like real life example, but it's challenging because you haven't generally trained them yet, right? So if you think about the order in which we're doing things, we're getting the business, requirements, building our user stories, and then we're actually doing hands-on keyboards to build this, in this case, we'll call it a proof of concept. And then we're having a UAT session to make sure that it's working as expected, that it meets the needs. And then once we all agree, now we're planning on how we're going to deploy and train our end users. So I just share that with you because sometimes we have challenges in UAT sessions, which is we're giving people instructions, but we haven't actually trained them yet. So it's a little bit of a challenge that we sometimes have to either do a little training like, hey, before we start our testing, I'm going to give you a demo to show you how this is going to work so you have some context so you understand. Or we need to be super granular because maybe they've never seen this object before, right? It's new. So that's probably way more information than you need for next week, but it's something to be considerate of as you're, moving into your real jobs outside of Click, because I know you're all getting mighty darn soon. Just to be aware that that's always a real life challenge that we have to contend with. Mauricio, have you seen that?
Every single time. That's well, it's kind of hard. Don't see it. Normally, we just, if we have a QA team, this kind of situations is minimized when it's go to the UAT, right? For the business folks to test and to check if everything is fine before production. But this is normally we don't have QA teams for all the companies, and these kind of situations happen. This is 100% of all the time, right? And you must be prepared because the things is coming. And with this kind of agile methodology of implementation, new things every sprint in the production, the process of testing is really one of the key points before send to production, to at least send with the less errors possible. Sometimes the companies, the people just ask, no, we need to implement this in this way. People just gonna test 1-2 days, and if anything's happened, we can fix right after the deployment in production. But the UAT, CUAT, will be forever.
One other thing I'll throw out there as well that's interesting with UAT, you're also dealing with making sure not just that it works as expected, but that it's the right solution after all. And what I mean by that is hopefully if you did those demos with your stakeholders, you're checking in, you're checking in, you're checking in. You're testing if you have QA. So as Mauricio mentioned, big companies, big projects, you're going to have a group of people whose job is to be QA. In real life, if you're an admin at a company or you're working in a smaller consultancy, there's not always the luxury of that. But if there is, they're testing to the stories to make sure that the story does what it says. But one of the things that we're doing with UAT is saying, I know the story's working as expected, but in real life, how does it work with end users, with human beings working on it? So again, hopefully we've hit that up front, but that's what I want to say is sometimes it's working exactly as written, but that doesn't mean that we don't find something that needs to be adjusted because maybe we forgot about an edge case, or maybe we all never thought of, or maybe now the business, as they're getting close to rolling it out, sees something that's a little bit different than what they were expecting. So that's the one piece that I like to call out is the user acceptance. That's a little bit different than just a pure QA where we're testing exactly is the story doing what it's supposed to do. Because sometimes we miss something in the story to begin with, right? It's not anybody's fault. That's just real life when we start seeing things and working on it. So, when we talk about being agile, that's, I think, is as important as saying that doesn't make it wrong. Doesn't mean we immediately change it either. Sometimes we have to agree and say, guys, we're pretty far down the pike. We've all talked about this. Can we live with this as is and then iterate? Like that's a possibility. Or sometimes if it's a big enough deal, we might go back and say, hey, we need more time on this. Something came up that we didn't expect. It's not a bug. It's just something that's different now that we've, seen it out in the wild, as they say, right? So again, probably more information than you want just for your clicked experience, but I'd rather err on the side of kind of sharing with you some of what we see in real life.
Cool. Lorna, please.
So again, in our project with the UAT and the proof of concept, it sounds as though we're not expected to go through the entire business process and apply a UAT to every single step. So we just perhaps take one step in our future business process and do a UAT for that, because that could be pretty lengthy.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you know,
Yes.
this whole experience, hopefully you've kind of gotten the point of like, there's not a test, you know, there's not a right or wrong. The idea is just to kind of understand how these pieces and parts work. But in the amount of time that we have, if you're doing a big process, I would agree, this is not most people's full-time job. You're not there for 40 hours this week. In real life, you know, sure, we would pick those things and, you know, kind of make sure. And usually it's often like a story too. It's kind of the way that we're doing UAT is first we're going to do this piece because it kind of goes end to end, and we're going to swivel and we're going to talk about this piece, kind of how that works end to end. So, you know, as you're thinking about, Lorna, pulling something out, you know, maybe think about kind of like a little sub process that has a, you know, beginning, middle, and end, maybe.
Connection, right? Is connect at least to have a idea about what you are doing.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Carlos, what would be the best practice to build the custom app and then add the users, or have the users ready first and then sign the app to them? Depends. Sorry, let me go. Can I go first? Sorry, Judge. Depends. Depends of kind of the work you are doing. Normally, when you go to a project, you already have your spectators, the people that will work with Salesforce with request that functionality, and you're supposed to can have a fake users. You don't need to have the right user to you deploy in production. You can have fake users, but you must have the role and profile that the users is gonna have in production. That's his principle, because as Jody explained, you need to test with that user, that specific user that requests functionality that work with that thing that you are developing, you are creating. Otherwise, you as a system admin have all the power in the world in Salesforce, but the real user that you're gonna work with that doesn't gonna have that, because the profile that the user gonna have is a lot times different than what system admin. And because this, you need to have a clear understanding about who's gonna use what kind of role and what kind of profile that person's gonna use. Then you are good to go to your creation, your functionality, or anything that requests. Jody?
Yeah, no, as always, the answer is it depends. The one time I would note that you would want to have some specific users already in your sandbox while you're building, is if they're going to be named in certain processes. So for instance, if you're going to do an approval process and a particular VP is the approver, they need to be in your sandbox in order to set up that approval process. There's a few other examples like that, probably with lead routing would be something else. So, you know, if we work in situations where I'm not going to use the word hard coding, but where, you know, a particular person is part of something, and it's probably unusual in really big implementations. It's very common in small organizations that, you know, there's 10 users total, and, you know, this is the first person that approves, and then the second person that approves is this person. It's not dynamic. It's not who's the region president, because we have 6 regions. It is, you know, Susie and then Bob, or, you know, whatever it is. So that would be one specific example I can think of where you would want to do that.
Yes, perfect. Leads, case, opportunities, accounts. There is always depend on what the request is. Approval process is a perfect one. In the future, for sure, you guys gonna see dynamic way to assign in the approval process. But this is It's a journey that you're gonna go there because it's related to code, it's related to flows, and relate to more things. But right now, same like the example she provides you is perfect. That you need to have the person that's gonna be or your first approval, or your second approval, or your last approval, or the only approval. Leads assignments is something that is really another point that you need to know if it's gonna be a queue, is it gonna be a user. That is really when you need to know the user before, right? But overall, it's just you need to pay attention to the requirements, and if you need the user information, you need to go for that. If you don't need, you can still have the fake ones, but be sure to work with the profiles and the roles, testing this stuff. Cool. Let's see here. Don't miss any question yet, right? Other question? Comment about the project? I'm not that connected in the project because, be honestly, I'm more in this open space to talk about anything. But any question about the project, please feel free to ask. We are here to try to help in the best way possible. And I still jealous about Hawaii. Okay, Kimi, please go ahead. You're in mute.
Sorry. I just have a personal question. I'm a mom, and I'm also in Hawaii, so time difference is pretty big. 2 to 6 hours from the mainland. Yeah. So I have a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old, and I'm the one that has to get them up breakfast out the door because my husband leaves early. So this wasn't something that was in the plan when I was starting to go into Salesforce, but now that he's changed jobs, it's kind of at the back of my mind when I'm looking for a job, because I'm just going to have this time constraint that's kind of at a random time. And so I'm trying to figure out, like, should I just not apply because my time at 7 to 8 a.m. is going to be blocked, and that might be like 10 a.m. in California, and that's a really awkward time for the business to be knowing that I'm not available or something like that. So I'm just trying to figure out, once I do start applying for jobs, is that something that I should just kind of eliminate and focus on working in Hawaii, or how do I even bring that up? So
I'm not a mom, but I have a daughter, and I need to drop her and pick her in the school. She's 1 year old, 1.year old. She's amazing. She's beautiful. I'm sorry, I cannot talk about my daughter because I'm the other way. But I have experience work with time zones. I have a project in Europe that I start at 5 a.m. in Brazil, and I have another project in US that I start around midday in Brazil, right? And sometimes we have meeting conflicts. And what I do, I try to reschedule one another. But in your case, it's not the same that I have. And I don't tell you to don't go to the meetings, don't go to the interviews. Go and keep clear this situation that you have today with the homework, and the remote work. The things are more flexible than before, instead of being in the office. In the offices is the same, let's go for Brazil. It's 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. You don't have escape, right? But right now in the remote way to work, you can be clear with the people. Look, this is my situation. I just need a break between this. But if the company is really looking for a person that is going to increase the capabilities and increase the performance, they are not worrying about the people just going to be disconnected 1 hour for pick up or drop off the kids in the school, or take care or feed the kid or whatever, because this person can work in the if it's 8 hours a day, for sure you're gonna work 8 hours a day, but you're gonna have separate schedules, right? And my advice is keep clear and be honest, because the companies are more flexible today than ever before. I never see this kind of flexibility before, right? And go for the interviews, not because they're gonna think that is, no, it's not good because she cannot work with 8 hours straight or whatever, have 1 hour for lunchtime and that's it. No, go for it. And be very clear and specific about your situation. And if the people really see the value that you have, they're gonna take you for sure. It's flexible, it's remote, right?
All right. All right. Thank you.
Welcome. Jody, you're gonna talk something.
I was going to absolutely echo the same thing, which is I would absolutely apply. I don't know that I would lead on my first interview. I would wait until you get further down the process or even get an offer, then you have leverage, right?
Okay.
So I'm all about the leverage, which is you do whatever you can. I don't mean whatever you can. I mean, go apply to all the jobs, act like you want all the jobs, even if you're sometimes not sure you want the job, because once you have an offer in hand, you have leverage against the other jobs, right? So always go do it. Plus, it's always great practice. You also might find, it's a great question to ask about when you're there. You don't need to share your story yet, but talk to me about time zones and, is everybody remote? Is everybody on site? Do you have an offshore team? Do you have a nearshore team? I mean, especially depending on how teams are set up. I will tell you, I have a team that has folks in India, folks in Brazil, folks in Guatemala, folks in California, folks in New York. So we know for sure that somebody's not going to be somewhere sometime. That's part of our culture because we've set that up. So those are going to be some tips or hints to kind of listen for where you might be more likely to find that. There's also a lot of smaller consulting firms that I've seen lately that are really using their recruiting a message to be around hey, we know you have a life, we know you have a family, we're recruiting people that we want that and that we're going to be flexible to figure out how to work. So I'm with Mauricio. I think that there's a lot of options out there. Also, depending on the kind of work you're doing, if you're doing, a lot of kind of I'm going to call it front of the house work, right? Where you need to be on call in a support role. How does that work? Do we take turns? What are the expectations around that versus other jobs that, somebody might hire you to hey, we just need you to you're not necessarily going to be user facing. Other people are doing that. We need you to execute the work and the stories and, that tends to be stuff that it's not a big deal if you do it that hour or if you do it later. So some of that just has a little bit to do with the role.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. No, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You're
Thank
welcome.
Cool. Just before Tonia, we have a question about from Carlos. What could have happened if I receive a great feedback during the interview, but both the recruiter and the hiring manager are not responding to follow-up emails? I never had this kind of situation. But then we have a comment after that. Just take a pause and wait. Don't follow up. Then very frequently follow up the recruiter with a causal message rather than subjected to just interview follow up. Is a good point too, right? Same like Jody. Now this is more with you that your experience because it's same like if I was the person that waiting for the feedback, I will keep waiting and then keep applying for other things because the life is rolling, right? You don't need to get stuck just waiting for one. No, you need to go for because if something's coming, could be better than this one. If they don't go fast and or in the pace in the right pace to hide people, the marketing, Salesforce market is huge, and there is a lot of positions open, and for sure you're gonna find something that can be better for you.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is, like, we obviously, there's, if you ask that question of what's the timeline in which I would expect to hear some follow-up, right? If they tell you, you know, it's in a couple days, or, you know, hey, we're only at the beginning of the process, that kind of determines what that timeline is, what's reasonable. If it's an external recruiter, I would follow up pretty aggressively, just at least to say, you know, you could even do the old, like, hey, I haven't heard from you a bit, just to make it quick. Is it 1, they haven't decided yet? 2, you haven't heard? 3, they're not interested and nobody wants to tell me? 4, they love me and you just haven't had a chance to call me? Like, you know, you could even be kind of funny. But you know, my expectation is, if an external recruiter in particular should be, you know, have professional courtesy to at least keep you up to date. They just may not always know. I would also, to the extent that you can, if it's appropriate, I can't think of a time it wouldn't be appropriate, you know who you interviewed with. I would be sending that person a follow-up email after the interview to thank them for their time and remind them of something in particular where you connected and know that you add value. And once you've done that, if you haven't heard back and you're very interested in the role and they gave you good feedback, there's some amount of time, and again, dependent on what was communicated to you, might be a couple weeks, where you would write back and say, I'm reaching out because I haven't heard, but I wanted to again express my interest, something like that. I mean, what I would say honestly is, if you're kind of feeling like you're being ghosted, as long as it's been professional and it's been a fair amount of time, you don't have anything to lose, right? Be persistent, be professional, be value add. Those are always my adjectives.
Tonya?
Hi. I'm going to give you a little bit of background and then ask my question. So right now, I'm coming up on 2.5, close to 3-year career break. I got laid off in May 2020. So in the prior company that I worked for, we had a very large Salesforce team of users, as well as behind the scenes people. So the way that we were set up was that each of our business unit user groups had what we called a business unit administrator. We were responsible for the users within our business unit. And so we didn't do the technical behind the scenes stuff in Salesforce. We had a system administrator who was assigned to each of our business unit. And I also served as the first tier of troubleshooting. So, and I did the training. So I liked doing the training, working with the users, showing them how to use the system. As I've been going through Salesforce, the whole technical stuff, I'm not 100% sure that I'm completely interested in the whole technical stuff. I really like working with users. So that the positions that I've seen as far as Salesforce administrator, that's not really the focus. So what are your suggestions as far as what types of positions I should be looking for? And I'm also dealing with a little bit of imposter syndrome by being out of the workforce for so long. So any feedback would be helpful.
Yes, here's what I would tell you, Tonya. You've got some serious skills and context that lots of people are dying to have right now. So own that and know that you're at a huge advantage right now, in that a lot of people are trying to step into the Salesforce ecosystem having never seen it or never used it. So I think you're sitting in a really great position. And I think it's perfectly fine if it turns out that your interest isn't necessarily to be a Salesforce admin. I think lots of companies have needs and requirements for, I'm going to call it front of the house support, right? I spent a lot of time in the food service industry back in the day. So I still talk about front of the house and back of the house. And front of the house is who's working with the users, training the users, answering the questions. I'm guessing that you built reports and dashboards, that you showed people, how to, navigate the system, the tips and the tricks and all that kind of stuff, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, there's a huge need for that. So you might look for junior admin roles, because it wouldn't surprise me, kind of going back to where we started this conversation, that a lot of people are asking for admin, but they're actually wanting them to do a lot of the things that you do. I would be looking for roles that include the word analyst, sales ops support, things like that. I know these roles are out there because I actually just about a month ago helped somebody in my organization pull a job description together. And we specifically wrote, this is not a Salesforce admin job, but we need somebody to do all of these things: user support, reports, dashboards, navigation. We need them to own some of the data scrubbing, data integrity, all of that kind of stuff. So I don't think that's an unusual role. And I think you're going to find that it doesn't matter that you have been out of the market. It's the same work is still there, and a lot of people need that. And by the way, there's also growth opportunity there, meaning you can be a business analyst if you decide that you really want to not just do the support, but want to help on the front end designing new features and functionality. Project management would be another one. Trainer, like there's lots of different paths you could go into, but even with the exact thing that you've done before, I think there's opportunities out there.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Tanya, what's your last name? I just want to make sure that if I happen to see whatever it was I just pulled, since I just did that a month ago, I don't even know that those opportunities are still out there. But if I can find that email I sent to a colleague with the links in there, it might at least give you some ideas of some examples of what I'm thinking about.
Okay, my name is Tanya Preston.
Okay.
Preston-Carter.
Preston Carter. Okay, awesome.
Actually, I'm connected with you on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Cool. And by the way, that's true for everybody here. Like you don't necessarily have to be an admin or an analyst. Like these are kind of the particular paths or the consultant they start people in. There's a lot of flavors of Salesforce jobs. So, if it feels like you're getting into some of this stuff, some people are going to look at Flow, for instance, and fall madly in love and decide you love Salesforce automation and logic and maybe things you never even thought you would love before. Some people are going to look at that and be like, totally not my thing. I'm front of the house. Like there's room for everybody. I feel very strongly about it. It's why I'm so bullish on a Salesforce career. All right. What else? Any last questions?
Yes, I have a quick question. I love what you said about the different options, because I was kind of stuck like Tanya. Like, do I want to go into the admin? Just not really feeling very confident about it. But I have a marketing background, and I love automation, and I love email marketing. So I think I'm kind of moving more toward that direction. Although I'm studying and poised to take my admin certification soon, but I feel like I don't know. I feel like I'm supposed to go the admin route, but I know that I'm passionate about marketing. So I'm trying to carve my own like space in the Salesforce ecosystem, because like you said, it's huge and there's so many opportunities. So I'm just, I guess, just trying to find my way around that. And I know that I'll get there eventually, but I'm just kind of, figuring it out.
Yeah, I would tell you it's funny. I just was talking to a recruiter yesterday. In fact, I'm gonna see if I can find his email while we were sitting here. We were just talking about trends, about what he is seeing. Bear with me. I just wanted to, there we go. And he was saying, right here, seeing more and more admins for small to mid-sized companies needing to understand the marketing and email life cycle to assist with Pardot or Salesforce Marketing Cloud or HubSpot. That for whatever reason, that's really being a trend. It never hurts to have your Salesforce admin. That's kind of, it's kind of almost like your ticket to play. But I think you will find there's a growing demand, and he proved it yesterday. So don't just take my word for it, but a recruiter saying that, especially in the small to mid-sized companies, the larger enterprise companies are going to have separate teams running their Salesforce and running their marketing. It is not unusual in small organizations that you have a small Salesforce team and you've got somebody doing both, or a couple people, one admin and somebody focusing on those marketing tools. So, if that's your jam and that's your background, I would highly encourage, go study up on Marketing Cloud, on Pardot. I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity there. And especially if you come, not only with a passion for that, but with some transferable skills as well. I think that would serve you very well. And you still benefit from being in the Salesforce ecosystem. There's demand for all of it, but it allows you to niche down, which I think is a growing trend we're seeing as well.
Okay, thank you. Because it comes easy for me. I find myself playing on Trailhead, and I'm always geared toward marketing and the email. So I said, should be going here, because a lot of times I know the stuff without, looking at it. I'm just like, I know this. So that's where I feel that I'm headed. And so thank you for that.
You're welcome. And that's what I say to everybody, like, find out what parts of this light you up. There are enough different flavors, both of the kind of work itself that you do. Again, if it's front of the house, back of the house, the different industries, like so many different kinds of companies use Salesforce, different size companies, nonprofits, for-profits, it's kind of the beauty. And, it's challenging sometimes in that first role. So, it's why I always say there's not a bad first job. Get any first job, but know that once you get a little bit of that experience under your belt, that, the reason I love this career so much is you can figure out what parts you love and find an opportunity, find a way to do more or most of that and not the other stuff. And all of those parts are needed, all of those, not just the tech stuff.
Okay, thanks for validating that for me.
You're welcome. So I think, Ethne, we've got a question. We're at the top of the hour, so it won't hurt my feelings if anybody needs to drop.
A quick question.
Sure.
Okay, when you were talking about how to respond after an interview, I didn't get everything down. So if you could just quickly, I love what you said when you said, I'm still interested and so on and so forth. I just didn't get everything down at the same time because I'm in a similar situation. Since October 2nd, I got a response. If you could quickly just go over some of the things I could put in my email letter to them, I just love that.
Yeah. So if you haven't already, generally my advice for a follow-up email to the hiring manager is, that you want to thank them for their time and ideally find, something that you connected on. And if anything else, find some other way that you can add value. It occurred to me after the fact that we didn't have an opportunity for me to tell you about X, or, one of the things that I was thinking after I left that I probably should have shared with you was, or the reason that, that was a really interesting conversation was it related to my book, like whatever that is. You always want to see if you can have that one additional kind of value add and rapport building after the fact. If you've sent that already to your hiring manager and you're getting no response from your recruiting manager at some reasonable amount of time, again, not the next day, not if somebody's told you it's going to be 2 weeks, we don't know for 2 weeks, but at some amount of time, it becomes appropriate to shoot a note back and say, hey, wanted to follow up. I hadn't heard back from so-and-so for a while. Wasn't sure if this position was even still available, but wanted to, confirm my interest, whatever, and see if you had any next steps, or even any feedback as as I continue my job search. I mean, I think you would be surprised how many people would actually respond to that. And then what I had said about the recruiter is just, especially if it's an external recruiter, I honestly think they at least owe you the courtesy of, I don't have an answer. I mean, sometimes they don't have an answer. Sometimes they've been ghosted, right? Because that's not where they work. They don't know, but at least to have them close the loop. If you haven't even heard back from them, I would be calling and emailing, because it would make me mad personally. I think they owe you that. But
Thank
that's why I
you.
was also saying you can send them the hey, which one is it, just to make it easy on you. I know you're busy, A, B, C, or D, and that way somebody can just shoot you a note back. But hopefully you're not. My general sense is if you're being ghosted by a recruiter, your recruiter's probably also being ghosted.
Okay, thank you, Jody.
You're welcome. All right, Carlos, would you send one email to all, one per correspondent, individual, recruiting, hiring manager? I would probably, I think some of it's going to depend. I mean, that's such a overused answer these days. I think if you have something specific to say, especially if you interviewed together, I might consider one email with everybody. But even then, if you had some few minutes of rapport or something different to share or something in common differently, most of the time I would err on sending separate emails. I don't know that there's a right or wrong answer. I think you're more likely to get a response or have a personal conversation if it's just you. But if you really feel like there's something relevant that you want everybody to see and you can't think of anything other than copying and pasting the same one to everybody, then I might go ahead and send it to everybody. And that's probably the way I would think about it. I was trying to think as a hiring manager if I would care one way or the other, but I would rather, if you had something, hey, Jody, you said that you lived in San Antonio, blah, blah, whatever. It was great to chat with you about that, or thank you for the recommendation for the whatever, then I would think it would make more sense to have it one individual. Like most things, never exact right or wrong answer. Some of it also is you got to be you. All right, anything else pressing? All right, well, with that, I know it's dinner time for some, beach time for others, right? Work time for the rest of us. But thanks for letting me crash your party with Mauricio today. And for those of you that are participating in Clicked, I am looking forward to seeing these POCs. So great questions, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jody. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Ethne, you too.